Hi everybody, it's Wednesday, March 25th, and we're bringing you a special edition of the Sahuarita Tea Party breaking news live stream. And we want to first talk about tonight a really important topic, which is, there are not a lot of meetings going on right now, and candidates, our candidates, your Republican candidates, assuming you're a registered Republican, are looking to get signatures for their to get on the ballot, and they're also looking, if they're running clean elections in the state elections, for $5 contributions. And it's getting really serious time-wise now. The deadline for all this is April 6th, and the deadline can't be moved by state statute. So I'm going to take you to the Secretary of State's website that you can go to, and I'll show you that right now. And it says welcome to Equal, and this is where you go. You can get here from the Secretary of State's website from the Elections tab at the top. And at the bottom left there you see sign a candidate nominating petition, and on the right it says contribute a $5 qualifying contribution. So if you click on either of those boxes, you need to give them your driver's license number and your name, or you can also provide your voter registration and the last four of your social security number. Either one, and that will get you into the system, and it will show you your candidates wherever you are, whatever legislative district you're in or congressional district you're in. And as far as the state goes, it'll show you only the candidates, Republican candidates, that you can sign petitions for, or you can give $5 to. So boy, we sure encourage you to do this. It's really important. There are three positions open in the Corporation Commission, and Corporate Commission is really an important function in this state. Handles all the utility control. They vote on rate increases, etc. And also they do handle corporation and registering a corporation, etc. So but the real important function of the Corporation Commission is they handle the regulation of utilities in the state, electricity, water, etc. So I need you to, and we're asking you to go to that website. I'll show that again at the end of the broadcast, toward the end, and go to that website and sign petitions if you haven't signed, and give these folks $5. If they're in the clean election system, they'll show up on that once you sign in. You'll see their name there as a candidate. So excuse me. Please do that if you can. If you haven't had a chance to sign, it's really a good way for them. Corporation Commission candidates have to collect over 6,000 signatures across the state. So now that they can't campaign, they can't go to meetings, they can't attend different dinners, lunches, they can't be invited to speak anywhere because of any gatherings of more than 10 people, so they're really limited, and this is the way to sign their petition and give them their $5 on the internet. So please do that. And the reason I call this a special show was there was an episode of WebCram that came out today. Dr. Shu is he had some particularly interesting information that I wanted to get to you right away, particularly talking about immunity and how important it is to build up your immunity, and there's a lot of other information too. So this is about a 16-17 minute episode number 43 of WebCram, and I'm going to put that on right now so you can watch it, and we'll watch it together, and take notes, listen carefully. He has a lot of good information as far as the coronavirus epidemic, the outbreak that's going on. the problems, huge problems in New York City, Washington State, particularly New York City. They are definitely a hot spot, and there's some others rising up. But there's some parts of the country where things are still calm, but people need to keep themselves isolated, pay attention to the president's 15-day plan, and we're trying to do that here. Even though we've had a few cases in Pima County, we're just being careful anyway. So, which you need to be too, whatever age. Even if you're a younger person, there are some younger people that can get it. If their immune system isn't up to speed, they could catch it, and they could be asymptomatic, which means they can just spread it. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. So anyway, I'm going to take you to the WebCram now, and so stand by.
WebCram.com. Welcome to another WebCram COVID-19 update. We can see that we're almost at 400,000 total confirmed worldwide. If we look here at the new daily deaths in the United States, we can see that that is increasing. There's been some interesting quotes in the news here for March 24th, and they anticipate that the peak number of cases is still 2 to 3 weeks away in New York. The governor of New York has said that they need 37,000 ventilators at that point, and they need to get another 30,000 because they've got about 7,000 now at this point. There's an ominous warning coming from New York saying that because they're first, what is happening there could be what's happening in your community in about 4 to 6 weeks. They're also saying that hundreds of thousands of people probably have already had COVID-19, didn't know that they had it, and have recovered. And they're echoing what we've said here earlier, which is that antibodies should be checked for, because if they're positive for the antibodies, then they don't need to stay home. They could go to work. Which brings me to this news that was on Yahoo. Fever map could show just how crucial it is to stay home to stop COVID-19 spread. This is a smart thermometer made by Kinsa, which is able to upload the data from people who are taking their temperatures and put it on a map. And what they've shown here through this article, and we'll put a link to it, is that in Florida there are a number of people who have had elevated temperatures, more than they would have guessed for this time of year. If you look at the data, the blue is what would be expected, and you can see here as you go from February 14 to May 14, the percent of illness should be dropping as we get out of the flu season. And that's the typical range that we see. And we can see here the observed in yellow, and then when we hit a certain amount outside of that range, that shows an atypical disease pattern. And of course, this doesn't require any testing, no serological data. As soon as the temperature is taken, this is uploaded to the database. And during this point, there was isolation measures that were put in place, and we can see an immediate drop. Interesting way of checking to see if there is a response to public policy. The article goes on to quote Mr. Singh, the CEO of Kinsa. In the example above, Singh says that the spike in the fevers coincides with reports of Miami residents and tourists ignoring guidance around recommended distancing. The steep drop-off, however, follows after more extreme measures, including beach closure and other isolation tactics, were adopted in the area. Singh says that they're regularly seeing that areas where residents are ignoring social distancing are seeing spikes, and that as soon as those are implemented via lockdowns and other measures, within 5 days of those aggressive actions, you begin to see downward dips in the curve. And it's interesting to note that we know from other data that 5 days is about the median incubation period for SARS-CoV-2. they're not actually testing for COVID-19 with temperature, but as is pointed out, fever is a key and early symptom of COVID-19. So bear that in mind. I wanted to take this to a bird's eye view, and if this represents the total population, then obviously not the whole population is going to be infected. There is some debate on exactly what % of the population is going to be infected with COVID-19, but let's say it represents it by this. We'll call this infection. And there are a number of issues that could make this proportion go up or go down. And we know some of the things that they're employing right now to allow it to go down: social distancing or isolation, or even some medications that would be called prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is a medication that would prevent the infection. We don't have anything that's FDA approved, but that's where it would go at this point. So what are things that could make the number of people with infection go up? That would be apathy or just carelessness. We're trying to do social distancing, isolation, to reduce the number of people in the population that might get the infection. And that's important because what we have over here, if you can imagine that these bars are on wheels, is we're trying to get these car trains, if you will, through a tunnel that has a capacity for the healthcare system. And there are certain things that will increase the capacity of the healthcare system, and there are certain things that will decrease the capacity. And we'll get to that. But there's one other intermediate step that really has not been looked at that seriously. And that is this car right here. We don't know exactly how tall these are. They're not drawn to scale. But these are the people here from the infection that will be going to the hospital. They will be going in through the tunnel. Hopefully, they are shorter than the tunnel, otherwise there's going to be a problem. So what are the things that are going to increase the height of the tunnel that will allow it to go inside? Personal protective equipment on healthcare workers. That allows the capacity to be higher because they're able to do more. Having ventilators, that would increase the capacity of the healthcare system. Medications, not only clinical trials to see what medications are appropriate, but also the manufacture and the delivering of those medications are going to be key as well. Well, what would decrease this? Well, if healthcare workers have to be quarantined because they didn't have personal protective equipment, or if there is no PPE, either because people are taking the masks or there's just not enough masks for healthcare workers to use. And so where we are seeing a lot of resources spent right now is for the development and the making of personal protective equipment. We are getting the government involved in trying to convince manufacturers to make more ventilators. The FDA is waiting for these clinical trials to be completed so that it can decide whether or not it's going to indicate those medications for use in COVID-19. But of course, we have other medications that haven't been labeled for use in COVID-19, and we're using those as off-label at this point because there are no medications that are FDA approved for COVID-19. And we are starting to get manufacturers to make a lot more medications. So we have focused a lot of energy in trying to get this tunnel increased in size because we know that there's a lot of people coming down the pike. There's going to be quite a number of people going through. And as it turns out, we know that about 20% of the people that become infected will end up needing to go to the hospital to get hospitalization. About 80% of those will simply have a mild case. So 80%, no hospitalization. What's happening over here? Well, we're having a lot of time and effort being put into social distancing, isolation, and things of that nature. So up to this point, this is where we've seen most of the effort being made to handle this situation with COVID-19. And the question remains, what else can we do? And may I suggest to you that where we need to be focusing as well is on this center section. Because the question really boils down to, well, why is it that 80% of an infection will not need to go to the hospital? And the answer is very simple. The answer is your immune system. And the reason why we know that's the case is because people who are older, have more comorbidities, typically have weaker immune systems. Those that are younger typically have stronger immune systems. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this situation. Older folks tend to be the ones that need to go to the hospital. That's not a big surprise. There are exceptions, of course, all the way up and down. There are young people that end up going to the hospital, and there's elderly people who become sick but then recover on their own. But by and large, the 20% that end up at the hospital have a lower immune system generally. And so, in fact, the way that this box gets increased is if you have a bad immune system. And the way that this comes down is if you have a good immune system. And not much resources as of yet has been put into making sure that we have a good immune system. And I think this is a good area to look at, because if you had a good immune system here to prevent you from going to the hospital, it also can work that a good immune system here might have prevented you from getting the illness in the first place. And so I think having a good immune system is of paramount importance. And there's two reasons why that's the case. Because for you personally, if you're able to improve your immune system, then you're not going to the hospital. But even more important, if you're not going to the hospital, that means the hospital doesn't need to deal with you and can concentrate their efforts on somebody else. Now notice that we're dealing with about an 80 and 20% differential there. That means if we can just improve the immune system by a short amount, in other words, if we can improve the immune system instead of 80% go to 85%, so that 85% don't need to go to the hospital, that means this 20% drops to 15%. That's actually a 25% drop in hospital admissions, which would be a massive impact at the hospital level. And of course, we're all hoping that if we can reduce this, then we can finally slip this car right into the tunnel without a problem. Hopefully, all of these things working together, social distancing, isolation, a good immune system, medications delivered when they need to be, personal protective equipment, ventilators, clinical trials yielding good medications, all of these things can work together so that when we have the peak hit, we're able to take care of all the patients that we need to take care of. There are two components to your immune system. There is something called the innate and the specific. The innate portion of your immune system is made up of components of the white blood cells, which are the soldiers of your military immune system, that basically indiscriminately take anything that's foreign and destroy them. It doesn't need to have specific knowledge of specific antigens. That's why it's known as innate. Whereas the specific has to be taught and shown specifically what the foreign antigen is so it can make antibodies against that specific and foreign antigen. So if you have here a pathogen, when the pathogen comes, it must penetrate through the innate immune system first. Now, what are the components of the innate system? You have things called natural killer cells. You have macrophages. These are cells that eat up the foreign substance, munch it up, and take little pieces of it, and then present it to the specific portion of the immune system so that they can see what parts of it look like and then make sure that they can identify it later. Also, neutrophils are part of that innate system. And so generally what happens is you have a pathogen, it gets eaten up by either natural killer cells, macrophages, neutrophils. The macrophages, generally speaking, take pieces of it and present it to the specific arm. That's called an antigen presenting cell. That's a macrophage. And there are two types of cells here. There are T cells and there are B cells. And generally speaking, the T cells are the things that are involved with cell-mediated immunity, where there are cells that are problems and these T cells can kill them. There's T4 helper cells, which can help communicate as well. The B cells, on the other hand, secrete antibodies, which neutralize antigens. Be aware of that. What is going on around the world? There's something called the BCG vaccine. Now, the BCG vaccine is given in various parts of the world. It's an injection that's given in young children to protect them from tuberculosis, even though it's not tuberculosis. there is a crossover between the vaccine and the innate immune system's response to tuberculosis. The reason why they're doing this in different parts of the world is because they've noticed that when they give the BCG vaccine to young individuals, not only do these young individuals have a natural killer cell macrophage neutrophil response, or the innate response, they also have a specific response against it, which is helpful in trying to kill tuberculosis. But they've also noticed something else. It seems as though the specific arm of the immune system is talking to the innate after it gets revved up with the vaccination. And it's using a carrier called IL-1 beta. Now, when this happens, it not only revs up the specific, but it revs up the innate as well, to the point where when they give the BCG vaccine, they're noticing a reduction of 30% in viral infections. Now, there were some criticisms of this study, but by 2016, a review was done that was published in the British Medical Journal that showed that there was an excess reduction in mortality after the BCG vaccine was given that couldn't be explained solely by the prevention of tuberculosis. So more studies since 2016 had confirmed that this is what it is that's going on. In fact, it culminated in a study where they gave the BCG vaccine, and they noticed that it protected against a completely different pathogen, the yellow fever virus, in a weakened form, which is also seen as a vaccination. Something that was new and interesting was that when you stimulated the specific arm of the immune system, it also stimulated the innate arm. And so therefore, if you could rev up the immune system by giving a specific antigen that maybe not even related to the thing you're trying to protect against, that a boosted innate immune system could be protective against another virus. And that's exactly what they're hoping on doing here with COVID-19. And so there's a number of studies all across the world, including Greece, in the Netherlands, in Australia, and in the UK, that's looking at giving the BCG vaccine to elderly population and high-risk people like physicians, nurses, healthcare workers, etc. And if they can give them the BCG vaccine, they're hoping that the innate immunity will go up enough that they might not get the infection. I'll put a link in the description below to the article describing this technique. Can a century-old TB vaccine steal the immune system against the new coronavirus? But you can see here on this graph, we're looking at the areas in red, as we mentioned. The other area that we should look at is the areas in green, even if it helps a little bit. A lot of the problems that we're having over here in red is the system trying to get the PPE out to enough hospitals that they can use it. Our medications, we're having shortages trying to get enough of these things out to the hospital. So we'll ask a different question. What are some things that we can do without having to worry about a healthcare delivery system that can improve our immune system? So for future updates, we're going to take a look at the data of things that can improve your immune system. Okay, thanks for joining us. And don't forget to see all of our MedCram videos at our website, medcram.com. We'll see you next time.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was really an interesting episode. Talking about the BCG vaccine, and another promising thing that's going on, like you said, around the world. But I thought you'd all be very interested in that presentation. I thought it was really good and good enough to put right up on a live stream tonight. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm also I'm going to go back to discussing the signatures and the $5 donations for clean elections for Republican candidates. If you missed earlier in the show, you go to the Arizona Secretary of State's website, and you can see here that you'll come up with this screen. Welcome to eQual. When you first get on our website, there's a top menu tab, and if you click on elections, it has a pull down, and on that pull down, it has you can select petitions and $5 donations for clean elections, and you'll get to this page. And on the left box at the bottom, you'll see sign a candidate's nominating petition. Those are the ones they walk around with, having you sign all the time in different venues, and those venues aren't available now. They can't get to folks publicly to in person to get things signed. They can't go to dinners, they can't go to lunches, they can't speak at clubs. So this is a real problem right now. Some of these candidates may not get on the ballot for the primary, and they have to have their petitions into and their $5 donations into the Secretary of State's office by April 6th. So the other side of the equation is contribute a $5 qualifying donation to the clean elections if that person is running clean elections. Now, when you log into this system, if you go on the petition side, you're going to see the candidates that are relevant to your area, your congressional district, your legislative district, state, and then the same thing on the other side. When you log in, you're going to see what candidates are actually running clean elections, and it's important for those folks to get that money. We had a really good Senate candidate, and I think it was I'm not sure if it was 2014 or 20. I think it was 2014, maybe 2012, 2014. Anyway, his name was Daniel Estrella, and he was a good candidate. He had a great campaign. He did a good job. The only thing happened was he fell short of getting his $5 donations. So it ended up that he didn't have any money. And so whatever he could pick up on the way is the only money he had. I think the first piece of the $5 donations clean elections is around $19,000. I could be mistaken, but I think it's around there. And that's for the primary. And then whatever you don't use, you send back, and then you get another chunk for the general election if you win the primary. So, as an example, legislative district candidates like for the state Senate or the state House, they have to get around 200 $5 donations and around 200 petitions, and it's always good to get a few more because some of them might be disqualified by the Secretary of State's office. And then same thing with petitions. They have to get so many petitions. Well, a statewide candidate like Corporation Commission, they have to get over 6,000 petitions and about the same for $5 donations. So it's a big job. I mean, they've really got to go out and collect these things and get their $5 donations. These are individual $5 donations. So if you can go online and get to this part of the Secretary of State's website and click on either one of those boxes and sign the nominating petitions for your candidates that you want, and also go and donate $5 to the clean elections candidates because they really need it. It will really help if you're a registered Republican. That's really going to help the cause. So we really want you to do that, and put some emphasis on it. Tell a friend, tell two friends, and by the way, for the Corporation Commission, our choices for the Corporation Commission are for the 3 slots. We'd like to see Leah Marquez Peterson vote for her, although we're not too excited about her 2050 clean energy plan. That doesn't excite us too much, but that's a long way off. And also Eric Sloan is running again. We're on board with Eric. And another candidate, Kim Owens, who I know is still working on her petitions and $5 donations. Kim is endorsed by Debbie Lesko from Congressional District 8, which is western Phoenix and some other areas out there. So, Debbie Lesko was a star during the impeachment fiasco, and really did a good job defending President Trump, and he's very high on her. So you get her endorsement, you're in pretty good shape. So Kim Owens, Eric Sloan, and Leah Marquez Peterson. Normally we don't run around endorsing folks, but it's okay. We don't have any strict rules about doing that, and we just want you to know, if you're not familiar with all names, there's about 8 or 10 people running for Corporation Commission, Republicans. So it's a pretty good crowd, and we don't know all of them. I do know one State Senator Farnsworth. We would not vote for him because he went back on his word on an HOA bill that the homeowners association, Arizona Homeowners Association, was behind to try to help homeowners in Arizona with their HOAs and some big problems there. But anyway, Farnsworth double-crossed them, and so we're not interested in voting for him. He can't keep his word. So I would stay away from him. But the other three, they're fine. So I think I've seen two emails from the AZ GOP this week about this petition and clean elections thing, signing online. So it's really critical. One of the emails said, right now Arizona Republican candidates need your help here at headquarters. We are doing everything we can to get Republicans on the ballot, but we are still falling short of the petition signatures we need. Will you sign the petition to help our local Republicans get their names on the ballot in 2020? And it may seem like we are inching closer to the 2020 election, but it will be here before we know it. And we are well short of getting the signatures we need because of the COVID-19 social distancing requirements. We aren't able to knock on doors or go to events or get petition signatures like we usually would, so we need to get as many online signatures as we can to make up for it. Can we count on you today? So, I ask all of you to help with that. And again, here's the website you go to. Sign in a candidate nominating petition and $5 donations. And that's really all I have for you tonight. We may have another special show. We'll see. Maybe Friday night we'll do something else. We'll see how things go here the next 24, 48 hours, whether this $2 trillion bill actually gets through the House, what kind of stuff's in it, what we like, what we don't like. We think it's a good thing, but we know they're sneaking stuff in, and we just hope the Republicans stay strong and keep most of it out. Depending on how that goes, we might have a show. We also know that next Friday, April 3rd, we're going to have a live interview with Anthony Sizer. Anthony was an LD2 House candidate in 2018, and he is now the chairman of Legislative District 2. So we want to do an interview with him and talk to him about not only the LD but the state, and get his point of view about things. So that'll be an interesting interview. So that's April 3rd. That's a Friday, probably 5 o'clock. I'll wrap it up and tell all you folks, God bless you. Thanks for watching. I hope you get to watch this later if you didn't see it live. And please subscribe. Click on the little bell icon to get reminders of a live broadcast. And we really appreciate all our subscribers and hope that we're bringing you really good information. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.